During a high school class project, my teacher told me it's unrealistic being a CEO. It's been my dream to be a CEO since I was 10. So I told her, it is realistic. Follow me on my journey to learn what it takes to become a CEO. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Realistic CEO Podcast. Today I'm here with Anne Kandilis. How are you doing today, Anne?
I'm great. And yourself?
I'm great. I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. I do truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on. So with the first question I do want to ask you is, can you tell us a little bit about what you do here at Springfield Works?
Yes. So Springfield Works is a collaboration of partners across the city. So we have employers, educators, we have residents who are the lived voice of experience as part of our work. And we're really about economic mobility. So how do we drive access and opportunity? What we learned is that you need to do it in a collaboration. Like the needs are great and the opportunity is great. So Springfield Works is really a collaboration of partners. And I'm just the fortunate one that gets to lead it.
That's awesome. So can you tell us like a little bit about your background or like your journey to how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, it's funny when you ask that question because this is not where I started. I was thinking about younger me. And one of the things I said when I was young was, I want to wear a suit. Mm-hmm. And I saw people with suits having things. And I didn't know what that really meant at the time, but I wasn't into playing dolls. I was into being a teacher, a business person. So that really stayed with me the whole time. I grew up in Springfield. I went to public school here, got a great education. We're first generation college kids. So I went to UMass Amherst. It's the college I could afford. I didn't come from means. And it was a great education there. But I worked 3 jobs in high school to pay for that. I worked nearly full time during college. So hard work was something I used to say, if you work hard, you can get somewhere. But business, I went as a business major. I said, I do want to wear that suit. So that stayed with me the whole time. It was interesting because I worked at a Price Chopper, which was a supermarket. Now it's a big Y in Amherst. And I became a deli manager. Somebody quit. So right when I graduated, the manager quit. And I said, I'll do this for a while. And I actually took a pay cut to go into accounting. I said, accounting will be a better profession for me. And I took a pretty significant pay cut at the time. It was like $7,000. But I knew it would do something for my career. So I sent one resume to one place. I wasn't an accounting major. It was a tip I got actually from my mother, she's a huge influence for me. And so when I got that job, later on, I remember the managing partner saying, I didn't know you weren't an accounting major because they never hired non-accountants. So that was the start of my career. And I worked for that small firm for a bit and then went to the Big Four, those are large accounting and consulting practices. So I spent most of my career or part of my career there. But it was really that younger self that was work hard, get ahead. And I had a great role model in my mother. We owned a little grocery store when I was young, like a Cumberland Farms type, or at the time it was a Dairy Mart. I was 9 years old cashiering. So I was standing out a little stool and cashiering. Just work. I always worked. Paperoo. I would always have a job. So like you, with your early days, you got to start somewhere. So hard work was my motto, and a good education. Those are 2 things that really drove I have a great career. They're different. And we can talk about that as I got to here, because this was not in the plan.
You talked about your goal. You just wanted to wear a suit. So what was it about that suit that made you want to just go pursue that career?
The image of success, right? For right or wrong, that was the image I had in my head. And I can remember just saying, if I'm wearing a suit, it means I'm doing okay. I'll have a car, I'll have a job, I'll have My early days, we had ups and downs in terms of our economic situation. And so I always said I never want to be poor. I think when you're poor, you have very limited options. And I was always about freedom of choice. And I wanted that. I can remember saying, I want to be able to choose who I am, what I want to do. I don't want to be limited. And so I think that represented success. And yes, it's money. Money gives you choices. And that's the opposite of the poverty thing, right? Which is if you have money, you have more choices. And so that represented the options and choices. And I still believe that. The work I do, I came up through the big corporate sector, but the work I do now is really a ground game. And it is about opening up access, opportunities, and choices. And so I think that I was the accidental nonprofit. I never worked a nonprofit. And so I was a door opens and you say, this is right. Everything I've done up till now will contribute to what I'm going to do next, which is what I'm doing now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You talked about how you went from corporate, now you're working in nonprofit, helping the community. It's like, why did you make that switch?
When I left Mass Mutual, I always say I retired for 5 minutes. Felt like 5 minutes. And I liked the policy side of things. Like, how do you actually make change? How do you make change? And the corporate was great. I had, like I said, my specialty was tax. And so I did a lot of corporate consulting, a lot of other things. But the thing that shifted for me was I took this policy class. I just left Mass Mutual, and what am I going to do now? And I took this policy class at Northeastern University and the Rennie Center. And it was a policy in education. And I thought I wanted to make a difference somewhere. I knew that I wanted to make a difference somewhere. And that opened up opportunities. Then I did some consulting work for the Springfield Public Schools on an early ed plan for the city. And then I did a consulting project for the Davis Foundation when they were working on EduCare to open that school. So it started to go into sort of that space I could really see in my own community. And there's nothing better than giving back to your own community and seeing the change that needs to be made and the change that maybe you can influence too. And so that's where I've been. I thought I'd do this for 5 years. It's my 9th year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you say you thought you're only going to do it for 5 years. Why do you think you're just going to do it for that short time? You end up doing it for 4 more years than you're expecting right now.
Yeah. So 2 things. So one was the 5-year plan is I never do anything for more than 5 years. Even if I work for a company, I will do something different in that company. I'm always looking to, okay, like we got this. So now you're mentoring people and they're going to do it. And I hope they do it better than I ever did. So then it's what else? Where can I make a difference? So I always had this 5-year plan. I started out as an accountant. I did bookkeeping. I did payroll taxes. I did tax returns. Then I went into a big company so I could have more options. Then I did a rotation to do software, and it was early days of automating the tax industry. And so working with software developers who can't speak the language, it's like the intermediate of the developer and the user. And then I went to Boston. So that was New Jersey. Then I went to Boston, became part of the tax consulting. So I was always moving within the organizations that I was in, and that made a huge difference. So 5 years, I thought, okay, 5 years. And so your second question is why are you still here? And it's 9 years now. Is there's so much to do, and there's so much opportunity in a good way to make change and to create the conditions that actually lead to economic success. And I like to say we're a bridge to prosperity, and there's a lot of parts to that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
So I would love to find a way to see how we can work together, whether it's with Realistic CEO or even our nonprofit Realistic Lemonade. So really our goals with both the road is to really help kids realize that their dreams can come true
Yeah.
and also really teach them about the C-suite. And what I've noticed when I went into these schools is that a lot of kids don't really know what the C-suite is. So to me, I thought it was normal because my dad really shows about the C-suite. So now we're going to these schools, and I always ask them, does anybody know about the C-suite? Either they don't know what it is at all, or maybe one or two kids know. So when we're going to these schools, we really want to help them know that. What you're saying, how you went in the corporate world, you might not have had goals to be a CEO, or CM or whatever it is, but you knew what role that you were going to be a part of inside of the company. So when we're going to these schools, you really want kids to know what roles that they'll be a part of inside of these companies. And the cool thing about it is not only am I able to help them, but I'm like the instant feedback that I'm seeing from these students and teachers when we spoke at Sci Tech, and one of the teachers came up to us and said, none of the kids think the speakers when they're done, but it's you and your dad. You were the first speakers where the kids actually came up after the presentation and thanked you by shaking your hand. And that means a lot to me because that means our mission of really helping kids believe in themselves is actually working like quick. Yeah.
That is really great. So you resonated, you're really authentic, your care shows in your posture, like everything. So that is really great that they connected to you in that way. Let me go back just another second. So when I was in the accounting field, I wanted to be a partner by the time I was 40. So that was a goal. And this is like for the kids to think about too. So I wanted to be a partner. How am I going to be a partner? And I made it. I was 38 when I made partner in Boston. Now that's a huge leap. The higher up the chain, the less females there were, less people of color there were, less people who might have looked different than the usual sort of C-suite look, right? So it got more challenging to get to the very, very top. And you're still at the bottom because there's partners who are more senior than you are. So then you start all over again. But there were a couple things I always said is one, and I think this applies to kids, young adults too, which is knowledge is power. Using that knowledge to actually perform at the top of your game means you got to work hard too. It's not going to come to you. It's not going to be a 5-year plan. It could be a 10-year plan. But you roll up your sleeves. I can remember, here I am, like tax partner, and I'm running copies because we got a big event tomorrow and we're behind getting all the stuff. You just do what you got to do. And that's the first part. The second part, I'll save it, because it's probably my future self will want to do something a little different than I did. But working hard and always be learning and making the bosses want to call you because they know they're going to get it done. And that means you're working hard. Working hard was always my thing. In my parents' store, on my paper route, in college, working at Subway, working at Dunkin' Donuts. I did everything and then later as a career.
It's also,
yeah. Thanks.
Before I continue, I want to quickly read my book that me and my dad cover. I am a CEO, realistic CEO. So it starts off by.
It's beautiful, like the art on the box.
So it starts by saying, in the sunny town of Dreamville, there's a boy named Tony with a big, bright dream. One day, in Mrs. Parker's class, Tony announced, when I grow up, I'm going to be a CEO, a Chief Executive Officer. Mrs. Parker smiled and said, that's a big change, Tony. Maybe think of something a bit more realistic.
That's terrible.
Tony's eyes sparkled. But it is realistic. I have a plan, he said, with confidence. I will read lots of books and learn about business, Tony explained, holding up a book titled Lemonade Book. And I will practice by starting a lemonade stand. It will be the best in town, said Tony, while sharing a drawing of his stand. Mrs. Parker was surprised. That's quite a start, Tony. But being a CEO is more than lemonade. I know, Tony nodded. I will meet and interview successful CEOs, business owners, founders, presidents, executives, and community leaders. I will learn from them. I'll learn to make good decisions and solve problems. Tony continued, I also learn to be kind and help others, just like a good leader. Mrs. Parker smiled. Tony, I think you just might be a CEO one day. With a beaming smile, Tony said, I'll do the LBW and I'll practice the 5 types of work. They are work hard, work smart, work freight, network, and teamwork. You'll see, Mrs. Parker. Years later, Mrs. Parker read a newspaper with a familiar face on the cover. Tony, CEO of more than Lemonade Inc. She remembered the little boy with the big dream. He did it, she whispered with pride. Back in Dreamville, Tony, now a CEO, smiled. Dreams do come true with the 5 types of work, along with self-belief in action. The LBW, the long, lonely, boring word. And in his office, the drawing of his lemonade stand hung on the wall. Remember, no dream is too big if you believe in yourself, are willing to work for it. Create a simple, realistic plan and follow it through to execution. Can spit some, bro. Everyone has a special dream that can change the world. What's yours? That's the book.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. When I first heard the teacher say that, I was like, ooh, teacher should never say that, right? I like that his story is a successful story, and she made good on saying, you just might be a CEO. I love how you framed, you don't always get positive feedback. You don't always get it in school. Sometimes you do. And if you can, I think teachers have a huge responsibility in building that confidence. Parents do too, but teachers do too. What made you write this story? I know you're interviewing me, but what made you want to write this story?
So what happened was my high school business teacher told me I was unrealistic for me to become a CEO. And that was like my dream since I was 10, when actually my dad was in the break room and he was doing classes with John Sortino, the Vermont teddy bear guy. And that's when he broke down the C-suite to us, to me and my brothers, Aiden and Miguel. And when he got to CEO, that's when I realized, oh, that's what I want to do. So that was been my dream since I was 10. And from there, I've always wanted to do that. So then when I got to my high school business class, we had to do a class project for our senior year. We had to pick a card based on our career. And then during that project, I said I wanted to be a CEO. And my teacher said it was unrealistic and choose something more realistic. And I ended up defending my dream and I became a CEO for that project. And then I shared my story with my dad, what happened. And we didn't think nothing of it. He made a post on Facebook, and the people were like, oh man, you got to go to the school or all that. So yeah, that kind of happened. I still didn't think nothing of it. And then my dad was like, maybe we should write a book about your experience. And at first I didn't really think nothing of it. Still, And then when I really thought about it, like, oh, wow, my story can help a lot of people. So then we ended up creating Realistic CEO to help people, especially like the young kids, realize that their dreams are realistic and there's no such thing as an unrealistic dream.
I agree with that. I love that. And I read a little bit about your background, but I really wanted to hear what motivated you to write that book. And I love that it's actually changed. You're changing lives. You're changing lives. And besides your own, you're having an impact at such a young age. It's a wonderful thing, I think. And teachers, that actually should go not just to the kids. I think they should go to the teachers too. Because my husband told me a story about one of his teachers who was really negative. And he also defied expectations and became part of the financial services business. He's got a knack for Wall Street, understanding markets, seeing things that people don't see, and not by traditional learning. So I think that teachers really need a lesson in this too. So thank you for sharing that.
Honestly, so when we go into these schools, what we do is we always shout out teachers. Like I always say, especially to the elementary school students, because I don't want them to hear me read the story and think teachers are just terrible. And so I always got to make sure that the students know that teachers are me. So I always shout out all the teachers inside the school where I speak at. Yeah.
And teachers want to do better and they love their kids. You don't go into this profession without wanting to make a difference in the lives of kids, of children. So I agree. I think sometimes along the line, you can get jaded, and that's true in corporate too. Along the lines, things don't always work your way. You're problem solving. I think it's harder than ever to be a teacher today. You've got multiple languages. You've got lack of professional development, training, etc. So I really appreciate that you shout out the teachers, because teachers have made a difference in my life. My third grade teacher did, and my 11th grade teacher did. My third grade teacher recognizing she better keep me busy or I will not be behaving, because I needed to be busy. And then my 11th grade teacher who said, sometimes the mind limits you when you start, if you're not confident and you say, I can't too many times, and because you're afraid to fail. And I think that she noticed that I was doing that some, and she called it out. She said, why do you first think you can't? And then, of course, you can. And I'm like, wow, I really do that. And that was a shift in my own self-thinking. Because I always was, I can. And something shifted. And so that teacher made a difference as well. So teachers can really make a difference.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I always like to ask a couple questions based on the book. I am a CEO, realistic CEO. So Tony talks about the 5 types of work. So I'm just going to go down the list, and I want you to kind of explain what each work means to you.
Okay.
So the first work is to work hard. So what does working hard mean to you?
So we talked a little bit about that. I think that's where I always felt so working hard means you're putting in the time, you're studying, you're learning whatever it is you're working towards, and then you roll up your sleeves and you do it. And you do it as many hours as it takes, as many days as it takes to get the thing done. So working hard is putting in the time.
So the next type of work is to working smart. What does working smart mean to you?
So working smart is making sure you know everything you can, the subject that or the job you're doing, or the thing you're doing, the task you're doing. And at the C-suite level, working smart means you're bringing smarter people than you in the room. You've got more brains working on the same thing and creating shared goals. So working smart is creating the vision and the leadership, but bringing in the talent. And I always said knowledge is power. But what I did learn is that you don't have to know everything. You have to bring in the people who can contribute to that knowledge. So working smart is both knowing your own subject matter, but bringing in smart people too.
That's awesome. So next type of work is to write. What does working right mean to you?
Working right. That's a new term for me. I equate that with integrity of the work. In and out of corporate, different motivations. And if you stay true to your own values, and surround yourself with the right people. Working right really, to me, stems from that. Who are you surrounding yourself with? What are your own values? I think it really makes a difference to surround yourself with the right people and to maintain your own integrity.
The next type of work is networking. So what does networking mean to you?
Networking. So I would say that I'm better at it now. I think when I was young, a lot of people will say, who was your mentor? I really didn't have a professional mentor. And I think part of networking is within your own company or the organization you're either leading or being part of, is really creating those relationships that both influence your own success and their success. So that's internal. Networking external. I think that's another area where, for me, it's like I keep my head down and I just go. Networking means tell your story, bring others into the space that you may not have. Network with people who, the way you're doing, be a CEO, do informational interviews, do conversations, podcasts. So networking, be out there. I think I remember reading this book and said, never eat at your desk alone. And I always do that. And I still did that. And I can still remember the book or the author saying, never eat at your desk alone. And I'm like, darn, I really flunked that. So networking really means intentionally meeting the people that can either assist you, mentor you, be a coach for you, and then you for them. So I think networking is something is still on my list to do in some way. I do know a lot of people, but that's from being around a long time. So.
We have the fifth and final type of work, which is teamwork. So what does teamwork mean to you?
Yeah. So that part, I'm not about titles. I think teamwork is, it's the roll up your sleeves thing. You're a team. You win and you lose together. And I think that teamwork, I think successful CEOs build a team of respect, shared values. I'm not asking you to do anything I wouldn't do myself or have done. And so it's not hierarchical. Teamwork is you get the job done. And I think some of that is understanding the people you're working with too. What are the things that motivate them? What are the things that distract? How do I create an environment that creates great teamwork? We work remotely a lot. And then, so that's even more challenging. But I think that a good leader creates the environment for people to succeed. I think when you're younger, you're almost afraid. It feels competitive in some ways. I think if you're part of a sports, so you grew up in sports. I grew up with 3 brothers and 2 sisters, so I had sports in my house every day. But you're negotiating personalities and emotions. And I think that teamwork that there's an EQ to the emotional quotient of not just the intellectual piece. So really tapping into what makes people happy, what makes them productive, what are the things that we can do together to create a better environment, the right environment. Trust people. Develop trust. I'm not a 9-to-5er. I never worked that way. And I know people have lives. And I trust that my team does the work and still has the flexibility to manage life too. It's over time you learn that.
That's awesome. So I just have a couple more questions for you. So another question based off of the book.
Yeah. The book.
Tony, he talks about the LBW, the long, lonely foreign work. So can you tell us that you had to do inside of your career?
Yeah. And that's working in a sweatshop in a Big 8. It used to be a Big 8 of accounting firms. Long, lonely, boring, on the road, putting in the work, learning. That takes time. And so a lot of, and sports is another great analogy, which is you didn't just become a pro basketball player, and not many people do. You put in the hard work. You didn't become the CEO of Microsoft an AI company. You put in the work, and it can be long and lonely because you're it, especially the early years, until you create a way to support it, a way to build it, a way to scale it. It's put in the work. It doesn't matter how many hours. I remember a young person said to me, I can't work this hard. I'm like, what? You're 23. What are you talking about? And it was like this work-life balance, which, you know what? There is that. But if you have a dream, balance is shifted to the dream. And it can be long and lonely and boring. But I love that Tony had a plan. That makes it a little less long, maybe. So I have a plan. And I love that. So I think life can be long, lonely, and boring, but the rewards are so good. The rewards are so good.
The last question that I do want to ask you is, can you tell us one fun fact about yourself that nobody really knows?
Oh, I can tell you two quick facts. One is I'm ambidextrous. So I can write from right to left. I can write from left to right. I can read upside down. I don't know why my brain works that way. So that's one. And what that does is the second piece, which is I can spot a misspelled word miles away. It's the first thing that jumps out on a page for me. So it's the way my brain works in terms of seeing letters and words. I always like to write. So I can write with my left or my right. So that's a fun thing about my brain.
Awesome.
But it works. It actually helps. Sometimes as we did at the very beginning, the left-right thing, the ambidextrous thing doesn't always work when you're trying to put something together or when you're turning on a lamp or opening a door, but it's a good, cool thing to have.
Before we end, I want to thank every single one of you for all the support you have shown me in my journey of becoming a realistic CEO. So ways that you can support even more is by going onto our website at www.realisticCEO.com and ordering your copy of I Am a CEO, Realistic CEO, which is our children's book, and also Unrealistic, which is what we like to call the blueprint to success. See you in the next episode. Peace.